As always, it is my pleasure that you join me for today's podcast of Second Chance Coaching. My name is Dr. Richard Lewis. If you'd be so kind as to leave me a rating and your feedback, I would very much appreciate it, and it will help others like you to optimally discover this podcast wherever you listen to this and your other favorite podcast. As you know, at Second Chance Coaching, we focus on seeing everyday life through the eyes of the returning citizen and highlighting the resiliency of the human spirit. I would love to work with you one-on-one, whether you're a returning citizen or coaching client seeking your second chance, or you're a representative of a business, college, or university seeking to integrate and support returning citizens in your respective organizational and learning environments. Please feel free to contact me via email at richard@secondchancecoaching.com or via Instagram at the Dr. Richard Lewis. Welcome again to Second Chance Coaching, and it is my hope that you and yours had a wonderful Christmas day and you're enjoying the holiday season, especially those of us who are celebrating the season of Kwanzaa. So continue to enjoy the holiday season and in preparation for the new year at the end of this week. On this week's episode, I'm sharing an interview with all of you that highlights the great work of the Prison Journalism Project. You could find the Prison Journalism Project online at prisonjournalismproject.org. This project is led and founded by two powerful sisters in the reentry movement. First, Miss Yukari Kane, who is the co-founder and CEO and editor-in-chief, and Miss Shaheen Pasha, who is the co-founder and chief education officer. Yukari is an accomplished journalist with over 20 years of journalism experience, which includes her being a staff writer and foreign correspondent for the Wall Street Journal and Reuters, and she is the best-selling author of Haunted Empire, Apple After Steve Jobs. Shaheen Pasha is currently a professor at Penn State University, and Shaheen is also a veteran journalist with over 20 plus years of experience working at outlets such as CNN Money and Thomson Reuters. I had the pleasure of interviewing Yukari about the Prison Journalism Project, which you'll listen to in a moment. Unfortunately, as I was talking to you guys last week about there were some issues with the editing, there was some breaks and some loss of audio because I was doing the recording and did the interview from my office, which the internet was unstable and the internet was kind of dying that day. But despite those edits, you'll still get a really good feel of the work of the Prison Journalism Project. I definitely encourage all of you to look up their work, be involved either by donating. They're going through their end of the year crowdfunding campaign right now, so look them up. They're trying to get to the goal of $50,000. So I encourage you to get in there and donate for a good cause. Or you could also provide your talents if you're in the reentry space by going to prisonjournalismproject.org. You could also follow them. They're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And their mission is really to train incarcerated writers to become journalists and publish their own stories. Projecting their own voice. I think that's a wonderful thing, and I think that you'll really enjoy seeing what you see on the website, and listening to what you hear Yukari talk about and share with us. You'll enjoy it as well. But despite the few edits, it is my hope that you really do enjoy listening to Yukari as much as I did. So without further ado, here's Yukari Kane of the Prison Journalism Project joining us on Second Chance Coaching. Welcome again to Second Chance Coaching. This season, we want to intentionally highlight some of the great work happening nationwide and worldwide in the criminal justice reform, reentry, and of course, empowerment spaces. As I've talked about in previous episodes, working with my students at the college and teaching speech, one of the principles I emphasize with them is that maybe you cannot sing or dance, but the one thing that we are all born with is a voice. And it's up to you to channel and project your voices and to bring attention to what matters to you, what you treasure, and to take your place in this world. Today, we're highlighting the great work by a group that is so innovative in helping individuals from across the country to channel and project their voices. This work is being done by the Prison Journalism Project. So tell us about, we talked a little bit about the Prison Journalism Project as far as in my opening. Tell us about PJP. What is it and how long has it been in existence?
Yeah, so PJP has, we think about our official start as April 2020 when we launched our publication, but we actually got a start a couple of years before that. My co-founder, Shaheen Pasha, who is a professor at Penn State University right now, she was visiting San Quentin on related to her Nieman Fellowship. And we just, we talk about how, we hit it off. We were both teaching inside prisons and saw a lot of potential and opportunity uh, to expand prison journalism throughout the country, help support the creation of more prison newspapers, and bring college level prison journalism education inside. and and so we started, the first iteration of PJP was very much focused purely on the educational aspect. And Shaheen brings a really personal story to this. She, one of her best friends in high school, was sentenced to 150 years in New Jersey State Prison. And, that really appended her perspective and understanding of all the issues that, we all know about criminal justice and the prison system. And so, we talk about that as our origin story. I mean, that really brought, made what we wanted to do real. Her friend is one of our leading writers now, and he's always helped us make sure that we're doing things that are relevant and real and not just theoretical or conceptual.
Of course, that's great. That's great. So, in telling us that, as far as Shaheen's experience with her friend who's incarcerated, and the two of you meeting to teach, was there anything else on your end, or anything else that inspired you to start this project?
Yeah, I think it's like I said before, I was covering Silicon Valley companies, some of the world's wealthiest companies and people who dreamt of changing the world, and but and that was exhilarating to cover, but that's not what that's. I think that there are a lot of us journalists. We come in to bring voices to light that might not otherwise come to light. Apple doesn't need help bringing their voice to light.
Yes, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And so I really, it's not why I had become a journalist, and really the experience teaching at San Quentin, my first day at San Quentin, I remember it like it was yesterday, and it just appended everything in terms of my understanding of a lot of things about the world. And like as an educated progressive person, I mean, I know all the issues, but you don't really know them until you meet people, you see people, you see this world. And what I saw was that there were a lot of people inside that were driven, ambitious, and smart, and that there were so many stories inside that were really important for people outside to know, that they should know. And then the realization that I'm not the person that should write them, that these stories need to come from inside, for several reasons. One, because I can never get inside in the way that that these writers are live. And two, that it's just, they're not my stories to tell. And so maybe, my role is to support that and help shepherd them through, using all the advantages that I've had in my career and in my education. Well, our publication started because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Shaheen and I, of course, have friends who are inside and are connected to people inside, and we stopped hearing from them. And I was, a lot of my friends were at San Quentin, and San Quentin, if you remember, had one of the worst outbreaks in the country.
Yes.
I think it spread through a number of prisoners who were brought in, transferred in, and some of them had COVID. And by the end of the summer, I think something like 70 to 80% of the population was had COVID. They had tents out in the yard because they couldn't accommodate all these sick people. And so, we were getting we weren't getting any information. And this was also, it's, I think this was pre-George Floyd, but I think we were still rolling towards this national reckoning, if you will. And we were looking at the situation and thinking, here's yet another, everybody's talking about this being a historical moment, and here's yet another historical moment where they're leaving out the voices and experiences of a community. And that, what can we do to make sure that they're at least there for the historical record? And so we just put out a publication on Medium just to see what would happen. Put out an ad in Prison Legal News, which a lot of people subscribe to, and the story started rolling in about what was happening. And in some ways, it was a really surreal experience because once we started getting the stories, we understood what was going on inside. And so while everybody was feeling isolated, we were feeling quite connected. And that was an interesting moment, but the stories were real and they were important. And so we just started editing them and getting them out. Then George Floyd was murdered, and we were like, oh, we need other stories. And we didn't even have to tell anybody because our writers just started shifting their stories and writing about that too. And, how they were George Floyd before George Floyd, similar experiences, how they felt about it, all that. And so by summer, within months, we outgrew our website, our Medium publication, but B, we realized that we didn't even understand how much journalism could be done inside and how many stories there were, and how, they're not just for inside consumption. There's stories, if they can be supported in the same way that newsrooms out here support journalists out here, then, there's an opportunity here to help writers inside tell stories and report on what's happening inside in a credible way and be a part of the national conversation about criminal justice. And so that led to kind of bringing in our initial intention and having this mission that we train incarcerated writers to be journalists. We train them in the tools of journalism, and we publish their stories on our website and in collaboration with mainstream newsrooms. And so that is kind of our mission, our intention, and our goals rolled into one. And what that means is that we want to help support, to identify writers who want to do this work and help support them so they can be correspondents in their prisons.
Okay, wonderful. So when I go on your website, which is, once again, for our listeners, is prisonjournalismproject.org, it clearly tells us right away the PJP is looking to create a national network of prison journalists. And when you talked about some of your objective and goals, you already talked about a national conversation on criminal justice that comes from the people that are there, that are directly impacted in that moment themselves, and training to be journalists. In addition to that, so it looks like it gives purpose while they're there. But of course, if do you guys do anything? Do your objectives and goals also stretch to anything outside of, like, if someone's released or with reentry? Do they continue doing work with you guys? What are some of those other objectives and goals that you guys do?
So absolutely, the quick answer is yes to all of that. The reality is that we're still 2 years out of the gate. We think of this year as really our first year that we've become an organization. The first 2 years being kind of the pilot phase, and we're not fully funded yet. We have our big end of the year crowdfunding campaign coming up, but we're not funded yet, and so we still have to be focused and make sure that we're fulfilling our main mission. But the ambition has always been kind of end to end. So, certainly bringing stories to light from formerly incarcerated people, families that are impacted by by the criminal justice system. I mean, I think most people in this country don't know that there's a good, almost a third to a half of this country who have working, bringing stories to light from the formerly incarcerated people is, um, it's such a challenge, and I'm sure that you talk about this in your podcast all the time, but it's such a challenge to come out, and we see our friends who've come out having to, check in with their parole officers,
Yes.
find a place to stay, find jobs, you know, figure out healthcare, reconnect with their friends and family for the first time in sometimes decades. And there's so much stress that asking them, no matter how interested they are, to do a piece for us feels like such a tall ask. And so we've been having conversations about, like how do we do this? And so, I mean, the message is that if you are a writer and you want to talk about your experiences, if you you want to put down on paper what that first day was like, what that first experience is like to go into a store and have all these choices and be overwhelmed, or, being able to sleep in a real bed for the first time and however knows what that first meal is like. We would love those stories. I mean, we would just love those stories. And if you go to our website, it'll tell you exactly how to submit to us. However, I think as an organization, we need to do a little bit more research and to figure out how we can bring those voices to light without being like the straw that breaks the back, or putting undue pressure on people, because we know that our writers, because we're asking them to write about their own experiences, it's hard. People really, they care about what they're writing, they want to spend time with it, they want to be thoughtful about it. And maybe you're in a halfway house and you can't get a quiet moment to yourself. And so it's I'm not sure. We're not sure how to work with that, but we want to figure it out.
But even as I tell my students, and I'm listening to you talk about what's going on, the journey is just so new and exciting because there's so many possibilities that are there.
Mm-hmm.
So I love listening to that. With that said, with so many possibilities and everything that you talked about, so on the typical day when you're not talking to someone like me, what does a typical day look like for you?
It is crazy. A typical day hopefully includes some editing. We're very blessed to have an incredibly talented and dedicated staff, small. And so a lot of times we're discussing things. Right now it's interesting. The first 2 years, Shaheen and I were doing a lot of the work ourselves. We were editing, we were getting stuff out, we were trying to fundraise, we were trying to build curriculum, and we've gotten to the point where we can, we're a nonprofit organization now, and we've got a small staff. We don't have to do it all ourselves. And so this year very much has been one of trying to organize ourselves. So we're creating a structure to be able to do this work more broadly and to serve more writers more quickly and be intentional. And so one of the things that we did over the summer was we are finishing up a handbook. It's going to be about 100 pages. We call it a handbook on media writing, and it has everything from journalism instruction to primers on your rights as a journalist, even inside, style book, how to take care of wellness related to writing, because the editing process can be emotionally exhausting, and
yes.
and
yes.
how and just support on how to think about how to assess your own risk. Some people who are inside are willing to take all the risks to get their stories out, others not so much, and it really depends on your personal where you are personally. And so it'll include a quiz to help you understand what you need to about yourself and the kind of stories you want to write, and it includes a lot more. It's also, we intend to also include 10 blank pages that people can use for writing, because we know that not all prisons allow writing paper freely. And so that's something that we're looking to roll out. We've created the 6 stages of writer progression as we talk about it. And so if stage 1 is your first submission, stage 6 is correspondent. And so giving ourselves a metric and accountability. So we're moving writers through an intentional progression. We don't talk about this publicly in our communication inside because I'm not sure how it would land. But we think about it as a career progression.
Okay. Well, once again, we're here on Second Chance Coaching speaking with Yukari Kane, who's a co-founder and co-executive director of the Prison Journalism Project. Once again, you could find them online at www.prisonjournalismproject.org. My next question for you is, I saw online, and we talked about this before we started recording. I see so many great projects you're doing, the J School, the Pit, the Mighty Pen. So do you mind speaking to us about some of those initiatives or any other things that you guys are doing that you want to highlight?
Yeah, so you're talking a lot about our PJPJ school initiatives, and so part of the part of what we're always thinking about is how do we get instructional information to as many writers as possible in institutions with various restrictions. And so, some of it is trying stuff out. One of our most successful is PJP Inside. And so from the beginning, our writers wanted a way to read each other's work. And as soon as we were able to get that funding, we created a print newspaper. It's about 8 pages with the best stories from our site. And we've turned it into an instructional newspaper. So every story has a tip on how others can write stories like this, what we liked about the story. And then there's a few pages that are we call them learn, and we'll do annotations. We'll break down a story, and we'll provide some training and instruction on how they can write different kinds of journalism stories. The next issue that we have coming out has an interview with Dwayne Betts, the poet, about how he started writing inside prison, and so. It's won a couple of journalism awards. It's something we're really, really proud of. We are, humbled to be acknowledged and proud to be acknowledged by the journalism industry as a community newspaper with a meaningful contribution. And then we have, you mentioned the PIT, and PIT is short for The Point Is This. PIT is also jargon in the journalism industry to talk about a part of the newsroom where a lot of stories short stories are done and go through and are edited, and this was started by an old mentor of mine, a former editor at Reuters, and it was just meant to be kind of 3-page, again, bite-sized, instructional, practical material based on some of the stories that we were seeing in areas where we felt like a lot of people could use some extra training, and so that was an experiment. We've since transitioned that to the Mighty Pen, which is we believe it's a first of its kind. It's an e-newsletter, bite-sized e-newsletter through JPay, GTL, and others. And so the idea was, the starting place was, all of us out here are getting e-newsletters in our mailboxes all the time. And why couldn't we do that with people inside? PJP Inside comes out, this year came out twice a year. And in between, so many of our writers like, well, we want to learn some more, give us some more, give us some more. And we wanted to find a way to be able to do that without, without really draining our resources. And we thought, well, what if we could just even once a month or twice a month send out these bite-sized tips again? And so we've got a professor at University of Massachusetts in Amherst, Roz Seavey, who has taken that on. And so far, it's gone over really, really well. Our biggest challenge always is that, our writers inside are so passionate and eager, and they always want more. So they're like, it's too short. And we're like, well, then you talk to GTL about your their 1,500 character limitation.
Well, I could tell you, I loved it. I actually today subscribed to the newsletter, and I got the
Oh,
email. I got the email a few minutes later, and it was really good work. I shared it with my speech students because even though we're not doing journalism, I shared it with speech because talking about really because I always talk to them about your voice, because they always get worked up about anxiety and things of that nature. So I'm
be done. We're unpacking whether the should is actually should all the time in various things. And so we want a PJ school that is effective, and that we're intentionally bringing our writers through from that stage one first submission to correspondence at a steady rate. This work is hard. It's competitive out here as well. And so not everybody is going to make it, but we want to make sure that we're giving voice not just to people who already come educated, but people who might have never written, but just have this really incredible insight or observation or just passion and are willing to do that work. And that we're bringing those writers with us, and that they reflect the full diversity of the community. We think that's really, really important. We know of some publications that are work in this criminal justice space, and they say, like, we're having trouble getting diversity, and part of that is because their bar, they set such a high bar, right?
yes.
And we think, and we support that. We don't believe in lowering the bar, but we think that the piece that we can provide is to make sure that more writers are, have the support they need and the training they need to get to that bar, because nobody does it alone. And so then we have a full-scale newsroom that can not only support the work that our writers are submitting to us, but that we can start developing story ideas with them. And so part of the promise for me as a journalist and the opportunity is, how do we provide the support so our writers can help connect the dots between what is happening in isolated prisons? Oftentimes there's a trend there that nobody sees because it's happening in isolated locations. So how do we connect those dots to create stories that should matter out here? As all these conversations are taking place. And then the second is, what kind of potential can we bring forth if we combine the inside reporting with really good outside reporting by journalists? And so writers inside have, their competitive edge, so to speak, is that they have unparalleled first-person experiences and direct observation and direct interviewing abilities. They don't have internet. I think the edge for the outside reporter is, of course, all the experience that they have, but also their ability to report outside. And so we think that there's probably some amazing stories to bring forth if you combine them both. And so how do we provide that support? And then what we really want is, this is an ambition for our writers, but we want them to work with PJP, learn from PJP, and use the PJP publication to gain the experience and the credibility, and publish in mainstream newsrooms too. I mean, we're not looking for exclusive relationships with our writers. We encourage them to start writing as much as where their ambition takes them. One of the things that we've realized early on, and we realize all the time, is that people inside are so resourceful, and we don't want to control what they're going to do with the tools that we give them, because they have so much initiative. And so, this past year we had a pilot program in reported essay writing, and we invited 12 students to participate in that. And a bunch of them started teaching the course to other people around them. And, some of them started pitching the stories successfully to outside publications on their own. I mean, they're taking it in directions that are right for them, and we think that's the way it should be.
That's great. That's great. What can we do as a public to help or be involved with what you guys are doing at PJP?
So many ways. One of the ways that you can be involved is to read our stories, sign up for our newsletters. We're also using newsletters to try to figure out, how can we tell stories in a relevant way, in an interesting way.
Social media, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We final words. I mean, I think that writing for me personally has always been a powerful way of giving voice. And we think that everybody can write, everybody can learn to write. And, we, and writer or not, we'd love, we encourage you to start writing, regardless of whether it's for PJP or not.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, there's so many stories inside that are so important, so memorable, and really engaging to read. And so we would just love for you to start reading. And over here. And if you could follow us on Twitter at Prison Journ, and on Instagram and Facebook, we're at Prison Journalism. That would be awesome.
Okay, that'd be great. Once again, Yukari, I want to certainly thank you. Thank you. You and Shaheen, two powerful sisters doing so much great work. And so I'm very in this empowerment space. So it means so much that you joined us here at Second Chance Coaching. Thank you for all the work you do. We'll keep in touch. I know Shaheen had a birthday recently, so tell her happy birthday for us. And thank you so much again for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Richard.
Thank you again for joining us here at Second Chance Coaching. In addition to coaching services for individuals and businesses, I'm also available for speaking engagements and workshops on criminal justice reentry, human resources, as well as organizational culture and leadership. Feel free to email me at richard@secondchancecoaching.com, as well as connect with me on Instagram at @DrRichardLewis. Remember, every day you are given this opportunity for your second chance, and I know you'll make the best of it. I love you all, and I look forward to connecting with you next time here at Second Chance Coaching.